You think African American Christmas dinners were just ham and sweet potato pie? Think again. Black families across the South created some of the most inventive holiday feasts in American culinary history. Let's dig into 30 famous African American Christmas dishes that have faded into history. Boiled custard was once the signature drink of African American Christmas gatherings, poured into cups and passed among family members as celebration itself. This silky beverage was made by slowly heating milk, eggs, sugar, and vanilla on the stovetop, stirring constantly until the mixture thickened into smooth, drinkable custard. Families served it warm or chilled with a dusting of nutmeg that filled rooms with holiday fragrance. Unlike store-bought eggnog, boiled custard carried delicate sweetness that only homemade preparation could achieve. Grandmothers guarded their recipes closely, adjusting sugar and vanilla to suit family preferences passed through generations. Children waited eagerly for their portions, while adults savored richness that signaled Christmas had truly arrived. The drink connected generations, linking present celebrations to holiday memories stretching back through slavery and freedom alike. Today, it has largely disappeared from tables, replaced by commercial alternatives that cannot match its warmth or meaning. Lane cake was once the crown jewel of African American Christmas celebrations, a towering bourbon-soaked layer cake that originated in Alabama and spread throughout Black Southern communities. The layers were light and tender, made with egg whites, but the filling was where magic happened. Raisins, coconut, and pecans folded into a rich mixture laced with bourbon that soaked into layers over days. Families baked Lane cake weeks before Christmas, wrapping it in cheesecloth and letting it age until flavors melded into something extraordinary. The bourbon preserved the cake while deepening complexity, making each slice taste like celebration. Women competed quietly over whose Lane cake was best, bringing prized creations to church gatherings where knowing eyes judged every bite. The cake represented both skill and generosity, as ingredients were expensive and preparation time-consuming. Its gradual disappearance from Christmas tables leaves a gap that modern cakes cannot fill. Japanese fruit cake carried no connection to Japan, but became a beloved African American Christmas tradition across the Deep South for generations. This spiced layer cake alternated between plain white layers and darkly spiced layers filled with raisins, coconut, and sometimes dates. The contrast between delicate vanilla layers and heavily spiced fruit layers created complexity that delighted both children and adults. Fresh coconut, grated by hand from whole coconuts purchased for Christmas, mixed with citrus and sugar into a sticky, fragrant filling. Families made Japanese fruitcake only at Christmas, treating it as a special occasion dessert. Grandmothers began preparations days in advance while children watched and learned techniques they would someday pass to their own families. The mysterious name added to its allure, making it feel exotic even in humble kitchens. Its disappearance represents not just lost recipes, but lost rituals of Christmas preparation that once brought families together around the kitchen table. Charlotte Roose was once an elegant Christmas dessert in African American households, featuring ladyfinger cookies lining a mold filled with Bavarian cream and topped with whipped cream. Ladyfingers had to be arranged precisely, the cream had to set perfectly, and unmolding had to happen without disaster. Families who mastered this dessert served it with pride at Christmas dinners, where its sophisticated appearance impressed guests and demonstrated culinary skill. The Bavarian cream filling was silky and light, flavored with vanilla and sometimes a splash of rum for Christmas warmth. Children watched from doorways as mothers performed what seemed like magic, transforming simple ingredients into something that looked like fancy restaurant fare. The dessert represented aspiration, a way of making Christmas feel special, even when resources were limited. Commercial bakeries eventually made fancy desserts accessible, and the art of homemade Charlotte Roose gradually faded from family kitchens and Christmas memory alike. Divinity candy was once a Christmas staple in African American homes, those pure white clouds of sweetness that appeared on holiday tables like edible decorations. The candy was made by beating hot sugar syrup into stiffly whipped egg whites until the mixture became fluffy, glossy, and light enough to hold its shape. The process was notoriously finicky. Humidity could ruin an entire batch, and timing had to be perfect. Families learned to make Divinity only on dry winter days, treating it as a seasonal specialty. The candy was often studded with pecans, adding crunch and richness to the pillowy sweetness. Children gathered around to watch the transformation from liquid syrup to fluffy candy, marveling at kitchen alchemy. Mothers dropped perfect mounds onto waxed paper, working quickly before the mixture set. The finished candy was displayed prominently, lasting through New Year as a reminder that Christmas had visited. Its disappearance from modern kitchens reflects changing tastes and lost patience for temperamental recipes. Brandied peaches were once a treasured Christmas delicacy in African American households, preserved in summer and saved for winter celebrations. Women selected the ripest peaches from summer harvests, peeled and sliced them, then layered them in jars with sugar and brandy for simultaneous preservation and flavor. By Christmas, the peaches had transformed into something almost candied, soft but firm, intensely flavored with both fruit and spirits. Families served brandied peaches alongside ham, where their sweetness cut through richness, or as dessert toppings over pound cake, adding elegant sophistication. The jars were precious gifts exchanged between neighbors as tokens of affection and skill. Making brandied peaches required planning ahead, connecting summer abundance to winter celebration in ways modern convenience has eliminated. Their absence from current Christmas tables severs a thread that once tied seasons and generations together beautifully. Persimmon pudding was once a beloved Christmas dessert in African American communities. Made from wild persimmons gathered after the first frost transformed them from bitter to honey sweet. Families knew exactly when to harvest. Too early and the persimmons would pucker your mouth, but perfectly ripe ones melted into sweetness on the tongue. The fruit was pressed through strainers to remove seeds and skins, producing thick orange pulp that formed the pudding's base. Mixed with eggs, milk, sugar, and warm spices, then baked until set, persimmon pudding became dense, moist, and intensely flavored. Children helped with gathering, learning to identify ripe persimmons by their soft, wrinkled appearance. The knowledge of where trees grew was passed through generations, with families returning to the same spots yearly. This connection to land made persimmon pudding more than dessert. It represented self-reliance and natural abundance. Commercial unavailability has made this pudding rare on modern tables. Fig preserves cake was once a Christmas tradition in African American homes where backyard fig trees provided summer abundance transformed into winter celebration. Women preserved figs in heavy syrup during summer, storing jars until Christmas baking began. The cake was a spiced creation, dense and moist, with fig preserves folded directly into batter and sometimes layered between cake rounds. The figs added sweetness and texture, their tiny seeds providing subtle crunch amid the soft crumb. Families with fig trees took pride in their preserves, each household developing different techniques. Christmas without fig preserves cake was unthinkable in homes where tradition had taken root. The cake connected summer gardens to December celebrations, reminding families that abundance could be captured. Children grew up watching the cycle, from harvest to preserve making to baking. As backyard gardens became less common and store-bought products failed to match homemade quality, this cake faded from tables. Black walnut pound cake was once a cherished Christmas dessert in African American families who knew where wild walnut trees grew and how to harvest their difficult treasures. Black walnuts were foraged in autumn, their green hulls staining hands dark brown as families worked to extract meat from notoriously hard shells. The flavor was unlike store-bought walnuts, intensely aromatic, almost tannic, with earthy depth commercial nuts could never match. Folded into rich pound cake batter, these hard-won walnuts transformed ordinary cake into something extraordinary. The cake followed traditional proportions, a pound each of butter, sugar, eggs, and flour, creating dense, buttery slices showcasing the walnut's distinctive taste. Families who maintained walnut gathering traditions held knowledge connecting them to ancestors who relied on foraged foods. Christmas justified such labor-intensive preparations. The difficulty of processing black walnuts means fewer families continue, letting this distinctive dessert slip toward obscurity. Burnt sugar cake was once a show-stopping Christmas dessert in African-American homes, featuring caramelized sugar that gave both cake and frosting a deep amber color and complex flavor. The process began with carefully burning sugar in a heavy pan until it turned dark brown, then adding water to create syrup incorporated into batter. This caramelization produced flavors plain sugar could never achieve: notes of toffee, molasses, and subtle bitterness, balancing sweetness. The cake layers were tender and moist, their golden brown color announcing the special ingredient before the first bite. The burnt sugar icing created frosting both sweet and sophisticated. Families passed down techniques for perfect caramelization. Too light and flavor was weak, too dark and bitterness dominated. Christmas provided occasion for such careful work. Children watched mothers transform ordinary sugar into liquid gold, learning that patience could elevate simple ingredients. The decline of from-scratch baking has made burnt sugar cake rare. Ambrosia was once the quintessential African-American Christmas side dish, a simple combination of fresh oranges, shredded coconut, and sugar that appeared on nearly every holiday table across the South. Women sectioned oranges by hand, carefully removing every bit of membrane to leave only the sweetest flesh. Fresh coconut was cracked open and grated, a task often assigned to older children who took pride in contributing to Christmas preparations. The ingredients were layered in glass bowls and allowed to macerate overnight, the orange juice mingling with coconut to create something greater than its parts. Some families added pineapple or cherries, while purists insisted on nothing but oranges, coconut, and sugar. The dish provided bright, fresh contrast to heavy meats and rich desserts. Children especially loved ambrosia, its sweetness feeling like permission to eat dessert alongside dinner. Today's versions often rely on canned fruit and packaged coconut, losing the fresh vibrancy that made this dish shine. Coconut layer cake was once the towering centerpiece of African-American Christmas desserts, its snowy white frosting and generous coconut coating making it look like winter itself had settled onto the cake stand. The layers were made tender with butter and eggs, flavored with vanilla and sometimes almond extract. The real work came with the coconut. Fresh nuts were cracked, meat pried from shells and grated by hand until enough accumulated to cover the entire cake. The frosting was typically a boiled white icing, glossy and sweet, applied while warm so coconut would stick. Building the cake was a multi-day process, with layers baked one day and assembled the next. Families displayed finished cakes prominently, the white towers announcing that Christmas had arrived. Fresh coconut gave sweetness and texture that dried flakes could never match. Children begged for corner pieces where extra coconut accumulated. As fresh coconuts became harder to find, this magnificent cake slowly faded from holiday tables. Chitlins were once an essential part of African-American Christmas tradition, those carefully cleaned and slow-cooked pig intestines that filled homes with their distinctive aroma for days. The preparation began well before Christmas, with women spending hours cleaning the chitlins repeatedly until pristine. They were simmered for hours with onions, vinegar, and red pepper flakes until tender enough to cut with a fork. The smell was powerful and polarizing, loved by those who grew up with it, but it meant Christmas as surely as any carol. Chitlins connected families to ancestors who transformed discarded parts into nourishing food. They were served with hot sauce and eaten with cornbread to soak up the flavorful potlikker. The dish carried deep cultural significance, representing survival, resourcefulness, and creating abundance from scarcity. Younger generations have largely abandoned the tradition, letting this meaningful Christmas food fade into memory. Red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting was the Christmas showstopper, the dessert that made children gasp when it landed on the table because no other cake looked quite like it. The cake's deep red crumb contrasted beautifully with the thick, tangy white frosting spread across every layer with deliberate care. Mothers made it slowly and proudly, knowing it signaled a special occasion and that every slice would bring wide smiles. The flavor was rich, smooth, and softly cocoa-kissed, the kind of taste that stayed with you long after the plate was empty. It was usually saved for the very end of the day, when everyone settled down for one last bite of sweetness. Red velvet cake tasted like joy pride and a Southern Christmas done right, a dessert that felt like celebration in every layer. Oyster dressing was once a luxurious addition to African American Christmas tables, particularly in coastal communities where oysters were plentiful and affordable. Fresh oysters were shucked and folded into cornbread dressing along with celery, onions, and sage, their briny liquor adding moisture and depth. The combination of earthy cornbread and oceanic oysters created dressing unlike any other, sophisticated yet deeply Southern. Families near water often harvested their own oysters, making the dish both special and economical. The oysters plumped during baking, releasing juices into surrounding bread and creating pockets of intense flavor. Christmas dinner felt incomplete without this treasured dressing passed through generations. Inland families sometimes splurged on canned oysters, understanding Christmas deserved such extravagance. As oyster prices rose and coastal access diminished, oyster dressing became increasingly rare, its distinctive taste now largely a memory for those who remember. Holiday fruit cocktail cake was the thrifty dessert that surprised everyone by tasting far better than its modest ingredients suggested. Mothers mixed boxed cake batter with a can of fruit cocktail, juice and all, creating a batter that baked into a moist, tender cake dotted with cherries and soft fruit pieces. As it cooked, the top formed a sugary crust that crackled slightly when cut. Children loved the bright pops of color inside each slice and the sweetness that came from fruit baked in syrup. This cake was inexpensive, reliable, and perfect for feeding a crowd on Christmas Day. It often appeared alongside pies, puddings, and cobblers, holding its own with simple charm. Mothers appreciated that it used pantry ingredients and required very little work during an already busy holiday. Even years later, adults remembered the warm slices and the unexpected delight of fruit in every bite. Holiday fruit cocktail cake tasted like thrift turned into celebration. Roasted possum was once a traditional African American Christmas dish in rural communities, prepared with sweet potatoes in a manner that transformed humble ingredients into holiday feast. Possums were trapped or hunted in weeks before Christmas, then cleaned and soaked to remove gamminess before roasting. Families who prepared possum took pride in the skill required, knowing proper cleaning, roasting time, and seasoning. The dish represented self-sufficiency and connection to land, using what nature provided rather than what stores sold. Children understood that Christmas abundance came from skill and effort, not just money. The meat was surprisingly tender when prepared correctly. As rural life gave way to urban living and wild game became less accessible, roasted possum disappeared from Christmas tables. Baked ham with clove and pineapple rings glittered like celebration itself. It was the proud centerpiece of countless 1970s Christmas tables, shimmering under layers of brown sugar glaze. The ham was studded with whole cloves and crowned with golden rings of pineapple fastened by cherries in the center. Every glaze sizzled under the oven's heat, caramelizing into a sweet, smoky crust that filled the air with comfort. Families sliced it thin for sandwiches the next day or thick for dinner beside greens and macaroni. It wasn't just food. It was performance, love, and pride baked into one dish. Mothers polished Pyrex trays and fathers carved with ceremony, serving slices that glistened like amber. The sweet fruit and salty meat made every bite feel both familiar and fancy. Though store-bought spiral hams have taken its place, none can replace the memory of that golden roast shining in the candlelight. It was more than a meal. It was a symbol of making the most of what you had and turning it into joy. Sweet potato pone was once a beloved African American Christmas dessert, denser and more intensely flavored than the sweet potato pies that eventually replaced it. Raw sweet potatoes were grated by hand, a laborious process that turned fingers orange, then mixed with molasses, spices, eggs, and butter before slow baking until set. The result was somewhere between pudding and cake, with a caramelized crust forming on top while the center stayed moist and custardy. Molasses gave depth that refined sugar could never provide, its dark sweetness harmonizing with earthy potatoes. Families made sweet potato pone in large pans, slicing it into squares that held together enough to eat by hand. The grating was often communal, with family members taking turns at tedious work. Christmas morning might find pone still warm from overnight baking in wood stoves that held heat through the night. Modern ovens and busier lives have made this time-intensive dessert rare. Smothered turkey wings were the kind of meal that filled a house before you even sat down to eat. The slow-baked wings simmered in their own juices, bathed in a gravy so rich and brown it seemed to hold generations of flavor. In many African-American Southern homes, this dish wasn't just food, it was a celebration of resourcefulness, a reminder that even the simplest cuts could taste like royalty. The wings were seasoned with onions, garlic, and a touch of pepper, then baked until the meat nearly fell from the bone. Once smothered in the thick pan gravy, they transformed into something divine, something that could silence an entire table mid-bite. On Christmas, when money might have been tight but spirits were high, this dish symbolized the best of soul food. Slow, loving, made to last. The gravy wasn't just poured, it was ladled like a blessing over rice, mashed potatoes, or soft cornbread. Every forkful carried comfort and patience, as if time itself had seasoned it. Smothered turkey wings were about stretching flavor, turning effort into abundance. The sound of bubbling broth, the smell of onions caramelizing, it was all part of the ritual. In every bite lived a legacy, and in every kitchen, the memory of someone who knew how to make a little go a long way. Watermelon rind preserves were once a treasured African-American Christmas condiment, transforming summer's waste into winter's delicacy through patient preservation. After summer watermelons were eaten, rinds were saved, peeled of green outer skin, and cut into cubes, then candied in spiced sugar syrup over several days. The process required repeated cooking and cooling, each cycle allowing syrup to penetrate deeper until rinds became translucent and jewel-like. Ginger, cinnamon, and lemon were common additions, their flavors infusing preserves with warmth perfect for Christmas. The finished preserves appeared alongside ham or turkey as elegant, sweet contrast. Making watermelon rind, preserves taught the value of wasting nothing and wisdom of planning ahead. The connection between summer abundance and winter celebration made each jar meaningful. Few families continue the multi-day process today, letting this clever preservation tradition slip quietly away. Baked chicken and dressing casserole was the one-pan miracle that fed big families without stretching the budget too far, especially on holidays when everyone showed up hungry. Mothers layered shredded chicken with cornbread dressing broth, onions, celery, and spices, baking it until everything fused into a savory, comforting dish that smelled like home. The top browned just enough while the inside stayed moist, tender, and full of holiday flavor that felt like generations blending together. Children lined up with plates ready, knowing this was the kind of dish that disappeared fast because every scoop felt like a full meal. It was the ultimate sharing dish, one that made room for everyone at the table. Baked chicken and dressing tasted like togetherness tradition, and a Christmas table full of love that did not depend on extravagance. Hoghead cheese was once a Christmas specialty in African-American households, though its name confused those unfamiliar with this traditional preparation. The dish contained no cheese. Instead, a whole hog's head was simmered for hours until meat fell from bones. Then the tender meat was seasoned with vinegar, pepper, and spices before being pressed into loaves. Natural gelatin from long cooking held everything together when chilled, creating sliceable loaves with rich, complex flavor. Families who made hoghead cheese understood using every part of the animal, transforming what others discarded into something delicious. The slices were served cold as appetizers or alongside Christmas dinner, their tangy flavor cutting through holiday richness. Making it required knowledge passed through generations, proper cooking time, vinegar amounts, achieving right texture. As butchering skills faded and whole hog heads became difficult to source, this meaningful tradition nearly disappeared. Molasses pull candy turned every kitchen into a place of laughter and patience. Made from dark molasses boiled with sugar and butter, it bubbled and hissed like a small storm before turning glossy and thick. Children waited for the moment when it was cool enough to touch but warm enough to stretch. Their hands, dusted in butter, pulled and twisted the sticky ropes under the soft glow of the stove. The candy turned from deep brown to golden as air slipped in, a transformation that felt like magic. It was wrapped in wax paper and tucked into tins for Christmas, gifts made from nothing but time and sweetness. Every piece carried fingerprints, laughter, and the echo of family gathered close. Some burned their fingers, some dropped pieces on the floor, but no one cared. The ritual mattered more than the result. When the jar was full, it meant the holidays had truly begun. These days, candy comes in bags and ribbons come pre-tied. But back then, joy was handmade, and it tasted like molasses and love. Cracklin bread was once a beloved African-American Christmas bread, studded with crispy pork cracklings that added richness and texture to humble cornbread. When hogs were slaughtered before Christmas, the skin was rendered for lard, leaving behind golden cracklings folded into cornmeal batter. The bread baked in cast iron, the cracklings releasing fat while staying crisp. Each bite delivered satisfying crunch alongside tender cornbread. Families saved the best cracklings specifically for Christmas bread. Understanding this addition transformed everyday fare into celebration food. The bread was served alongside greens and ham, its porky richness complementing everything on the table. Children competed for pieces with the most cracklings, knowing Christmas meant abundance. As home hog butchering declined and commercial cracklings failed to match homemade quality, this distinctive bread has nearly vanished from holiday tables. Butter rolls baked in sweet syrup were the hidden treasure of Southern Christmas tables, a dish that blurred the line between dessert and bread. Mothers rolled the dough into soft spirals, placed them in a pan, and poured a warm mix of milk butter and sugar over the top, letting it settle into every gap. As they baked, the syrup thickened into something creamy sweet and almost custard-like, coating every corner. Children hovered near the oven, unable to wait, their eyes following the bubbling edges. When the rolls came out piping hot, they tore apart in soft, tender layers that melted on the tongue. Butter rolls tasted like sweetness, softness, and pure Christmas comfort, the kind of treat made with hands that understood how to turn simple ingredients into unforgettable joy. Hoppin John was once an essential African-American Christmas and New Year's dish, combining black-eyed peas with rice in a tradition believed to bring luck and prosperity. The dish traced roots to West Africa, where rice and beans formed dietary staples, surviving through slavery to become a cornerstone of Southern Black foodways. Black-eyed peas were cooked slowly with ham hock until tender, then combined with rice that absorbed the smoky cooking liquid. Families served Hoppin John on Christmas and New Year's Day when eating it ensured good fortune. The peas represented coins, while accompanying greens represented paper money, together promising financial blessings. Some families buried a dime in the pot, with the finder receiving extra luck. The dish provided complete protein from the bean and rice combination at minimal cost. Though still made in some households, Hoppin John has faded from many Christmas tables as traditions weakened. Pickled pig's feet were once a treasured African-American Christmas delicacy, those gelatinous, vinegary morsels appearing in jars on holiday tables across the South. The preparation began weeks before Christmas, when pig's feet were boiled until tender, then packed into jars with spiced vinegar brine. The finished product was rich with collagen, tangy from vinegar, and seasoned with bay leaves and peppercorns. Families served them cold as appetizers, or alongside the main meal, their bold flavor providing contrast to sweeter dishes. The dish represented the nose-to-tail philosophy characterizing African-American cooking, using every part of the animal with skill and pride. Children either loved or hated the texture, but adults understood Christmas required such traditional foods. Making pickled pig's feet required knowledge passed through generations. As younger cooks abandoned the time-intensive process, this tradition has largely disappeared. Rum cake was once a sophisticated African-American Christmas dessert, soaked with enough dark rum to make the cake deeply flavorful and slightly intoxicating. The base was typically a butter cake or pound cake, dense enough to absorb liquid without falling apart. After baking, the cake was pierced repeatedly, then drenched in warm syrup made from butter, sugar, and generous dark rum. The cake sat for days, wrapped tightly, as rum penetrated every crumb and flavors melded. By Christmas, the cake had transformed, intensely boozy, incredibly moist, and rich with caramelized notes. Families made rum cake weeks ahead, understanding time-improved flavor. The cake was sliced thin because of its richness, each piece delivering concentrated indulgence. Adults savored it with coffee while children received plain cake instead. As quick desserts replaced patient preparations, rum cake has faded from many holiday tables. Cracklin cornbread was the Christmas breakfast staple that transformed rendered pork fat into something crispy and essential to Black holiday mornings. Cracklins, the crispy bits left after rendering lard, were folded into cornbread batter before baking, their porky crunch adding texture that plain cornbread couldn't match. The cornbread was baked in cast-iron skillets preheated with bacon drippings, creating a crust so crispy it shattered when broken. Families who raised their own hogs saved cracklins specifically for Christmas, understanding this ingredient connected the holiday to autumn butchering. Served alongside eggs, ham, and red-eye gravy, cracklin cornbread provided the perfect base for sopping up flavor. Children who grew up eating this bread remembered its distinctive texture long after leaving home. The dish required access to freshly rendered cracklins that modern cooks rarely produce. It represented the complete cycle of raising, butchering, and celebrating that defined rural Black life. Coconut layer cake towered over Black Christmas dessert tables, its snowy white frosting and generous coating of fresh coconut making it look like something from a dream. Baking this cake was an all-day affair that began with cracking coconuts and grating their meat by hand, a task that left knuckles raw but filled kitchens with tropical fragrance. The cake layers themselves were tender white cake, sometimes flavored with coconut milk extracted from the fresh meat. Between each layer went fluffy 7-minute frosting, its glossy whiteness providing the perfect canvas for handfuls of shredded coconut pressed into every surface. The finished cake was often placed under glass domes to protect its delicate coating while it waited for Christmas dinner. Slicing revealed the snowy interior, each piece releasing the sweet perfume of coconut that had become inseparable from holiday celebration. This cake required skill that younger generations rarely developed. Buttermilk sky biscuits were Christmas morning tradition, tall and fluffy and buttery enough to make store-bought rolls irrelevant. Black mothers made these before sunrise using self-rising flour, buttermilk, and cold butter cut into pea-sized pieces, never melted, because that destroyed flakiness. The secret was handling the dough minimally, folding it exactly 3 times to create layers without developing gluten. Some grandmothers used white lily flour specifically, swearing nothing else produced the same tenderness. The shaped biscuits were placed touching in cast-iron skillets, so sides stayed soft while tops and bottoms crisped. Before baking, each was brushed with melted butter mixed with honey, not enough to make them sweet, just enough to create a golden glaze. They baked until risen to twice their height, then were brushed with more honey butter while hot. The recipe stayed secret because perfect biscuits required technique more than ingredients. Sweet potato tea cakes were the taste of Christmas love, hand-shaped and baked with care when pie fixings were too dear. Mashed sweet potatoes took the place of expensive butter, giving each cake a soft golden hue and a sweetness all its own. The dough was mixed in big wooden bowls, rolled out on floured tables, and cut into circles by jar lids or tin cups. When they came out of the oven, the air turned rich with spice and sugar. These little cakes were passed around in napkins at church socials or packed for neighbors as gifts. Each one told a story of resourceful joy, how something so simple could still feel special. Children waited by the stove for the first warm bite, soft and fragrant in their hands. Sweet potato tea cakes were humble and heavenly, proof that love could rise even without plenty. Hog maw stuffed for Christmas was a centerpiece dish demonstrating the resourcefulness passed down through generations of Black families. The pig's stomach was cleaned meticulously before being filled with seasoned sausage, potatoes, onions, and cabbage. Slowly roasted until the outer skin turned crispy and the filling became tender, This dish could feed entire extended families gathering for holiday celebrations. The preparation connected Black Americans to Southern roots and traditions stretching back through slavery, when using every part of the animal meant survival. Sliced thick and served with greens and cornbread, hog maw delivered rich porky flavor that satisfied the deepest hunger. Children who grew up eating this dish remembered its distinctive appearance long after leaving home. Though rarely prepared today, hog maw represented the whole animal cooking that defined Black foodways for generations. Smoked fish spread carried coastal African American community flavors to Christmas celebrations far from any shoreline. Smoked mullet, mackerel, or whiting was flaked carefully, then blended with cream cheese, lemon juice, hot sauce, and minced celery and onion. The mixture was chilled until firm, served surrounded by crackers or vegetables for dipping. Smokiness mingled with bright lemon acid and pepper heat, creating layers developing with each bite. Families near coasts smoked their own fish, while those inland relied on specialty markets or mail order from relatives maintaining water connections. The spread represented African American migration experience, carrying food traditions from places of origin to new homes across the country. Children learned to distinguish quality smoked fish by texture and flavor depth, education serving them throughout their lives. The tradition reminded families that no matter how far they traveled, the tastes of home could follow them anywhere they went. Stuffed celery with cream cheese and pimento created colorful boats that children picked up by their crunchy handles, the creamy filling contrasting perfectly with the crisp, fresh vegetable that provided texture amidst holiday indulgence. Mothers would wash and trim celery stalks, cutting them into 3-inch lengths before drying them thoroughly and arranging them on serving platters like little canoes. The filling was made by beating cream cheese until fluffy, then folding in diced pimentos, mayonnaise, and seasonings like garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper. The cream cheese mixture was spread generously into each celery groove, mounded slightly and sometimes garnished with paprika, chopped olives, or crispy bacon. In Black households during the 1970s, stuffed celery represented an attempt to include something fresh among heavier holiday offerings. Children loved them because the cream cheese provided richness while celery added refreshing crunch. Sugar cane sticks were the simplest kind of sweetness, and they carried a special memory for children who grew up with little. Fresh cane was cut into sticks, peeled, and chewed for its sweet juice, offering a natural candy when refined sugar or store-bought treats were out of reach. For many children in the South, walking home with a stick of sugar cane was as good as holding a chocolate bar. It was affordable, long-lasting, and carried the earthy, raw sweetness of the land itself. Parents loved it because it kept children happy without costing much, and it taught the value of finding joy in small things. Sugar cane sticks carried the reminder that sweetness did not need to come from a store, but from fields worked by hand. They were part of the rhythm of rural life, tied to harvests and family memories. Even in the toughest years, sugar cane sticks brought happiness. Buttermilk cornbread pudding was the sweet ending to a long day's work, born from the habit of never wasting a crumb. Leftover cornbread was crumbled into a pan, soaked in buttermilk, sugar, and a few eggs, then baked until golden and bubbling at the edges. The result was soft and custardy, rich with tang and sweetness. Families who had little turned this into something extraordinary, a dessert that cost almost nothing but tasted like a celebration. Served warm with a drizzle of syrup or a spoon of butter, it filled the room with quiet joy. The flavor was simple, but the feeling was grand. Buttermilk cornbread pudding showed that the same bread that fed you through hard times could also bring comfort when the world finally slowed down. It was thrift turned into tenderness, poverty turned into pride, and warmth turned into sweetness. Hoghead cheese appeared on Black Christmas buffets as a savory counterpoint to the sweet desserts and rich main dishes that dominated holiday tables. This wasn't cheese at all, but a cold meat preparation made by simmering the pig's head with onions, vinegar, and spices until the meat fell from the bone. The cooking liquid, rich with natural gelatin, was mixed with the shredded meat and pressed into loaves that set firm when chilled. sliced thin and served cold with crackers or bread. Hoghead cheese delivered intense porky flavor, brightened by vinegar's tang. Black families throughout the South prepared this dish in the days before Christmas, letting it set overnight so it could be sliced and arranged on platters. The preparation required skill and patience, knowing exactly when the meat was tender, how much vinegar to add, how firm the final product should be. Hoghead cheese represented the nose-to-tail cooking philosophy that ensured nothing from the holiday hog went to waste. Christmas potato salad was the creamy, tangy side dish that appeared on Black holiday tables with as much ceremony as the ham it accompanied. Unlike summer picnic versions, Christmas potato salad was richer and more elaborately prepared, often including chopped eggs, sweet pickles, celery, and sometimes olives that elevated it above everyday fare. The potatoes were boiled until just tender, then dressed while still warm so they absorbed the mayonnaise and mustard mixture completely. Grandmothers made this salad the day before Christmas, letting it chill overnight so flavors could meld into something greater than the sum of simple ingredients. The salad was served in the family's best bowl, its pale yellow color dotted with the red and green of pimentos and pickle relish. Every family had their own version, some sweeter, some tangier, some with ingredients kept secret from curious neighbors. Christmas potato salad represented the kind of made-from-scratch cooking that has given way to deli counter convenience. Cheese wafers made with sharp cheddar and butter created crispy, salty crackers that children munched by the handful, their homemade quality far superior to anything store-bought could offer. Grandmothers would cream softened butter with finely shredded sharp cheddar cheese, then gradually add flour, salt, and cayenne pepper until the mixture formed a stiff dough. The dough was rolled into logs, wrapped in wax paper, and chilled until firm, then sliced into thin rounds and baked until golden brown and crispy. As they baked, the cheese melted into the butter and flour, creating crackers that were rich, savory, and addictively crunchy with just a hint of heat from the cayenne. In 1970s, Black households, cheese wafers represented Southern tradition and hospitality, recipes that had been passed down through generations. Children loved cheese wafers because they tasted like cheesy potato chips but felt more sophisticated since they were homemade. Ambrosia salad with fresh coconut was the Christmas side dish that straddled dessert and salad. Black mothers made this using fresh fruit, mandarin oranges, pineapple chunks, maraschino cherries, and the secret addition of pomegranate seeds that added jewel-tone color and tart brightness. The binding agent wasn't just whipped cream, but a mixture of whipped cream, sour cream, and cream cheese that gave it tanginess. Fresh coconut was grated and toasted lightly, adding nutty depth that sweetened flaked coconut couldn't match. Mini marshmallows were folded in at the last minute so they stayed soft. The salad was refrigerated for several hours, letting flavors meld while the coconut softened. It was served in crystal bowls at Christmas dinner, looking almost too pretty to eat with pink and white and red colors. The pomegranate addition and the cream cheese mixture stayed secret because these elevated ambrosia from church potluck standard to something genuinely special. Cracklin cornbread was the sound and scent of Southern celebration, simple, hearty, and alive with flavor. The batter began with cornmeal, salt, and buttermilk, stirred smooth before being folded around handfuls of crispy pork cracklins, those golden bits left from rendering lard. When poured into a sizzling iron skillet, the mixture hissed and popped, the edges browning fast while the center baked tender and fragrant. The smell filled every corner of the house, smoke, salt, and sweetness in harmony. Pulled hot from the oven, it was sliced thick and served with cane syrup or honey, sometimes alongside collards or field peas. Every bite carried the crunch of the cracklins, the warmth of corn, and the satisfaction of something made from almost nothing. At Christmas, this cornbread became a feast in itself. Simple food transformed into comfort and pride. Cracklin cornbread was more than a dish. It was tradition sizzling in a skillet, a golden link between the past and the present, proof that flavor could rise from thrift and care. Mayhaw jelly was the rare Christmas preserve that appeared only in homes where someone knew the wild secrets of southern swamps and bottomlands. Mayhaws, small, tart fruits that grew on trees standing in shallow water, were gathered in spring, their brief season demanding quick action from those who valued their unique flavor. The fruits were boiled and strained to extract ruby-red juice that was cooked with sugar until it gelled into something both tart and sweet, unlike any store-bought preserve. Black families in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama treasured this jelly, saving it specifically for Christmas breakfast when it appeared alongside biscuits and country ham. The flavor was complex, fruity, but with a wild edge that spoke of places where only the determined ventured. Making mayhaw jelly required knowing where the trees grew, arriving at precisely the right moment, and understanding the temperamental nature of gelling. This regional treasure remains largely unknown outside its home territory. Which African American Christmas dish would you bring back to your holiday table? Drop your favorite memory in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more forgotten flavors from our culinary past.